This is Chris Alicia, your host of Intentionality, aligning to the divine intention. And intentionality means exactly that. It means understanding the divine purpose, intention behind every single aspect of life. The people that you meet, the way that you are, the gifts that you have, the way that flowers grow and birds fly, and the sun feeding down to the plants, and the plants taking our carbon dioxide and turning it into oxygen for us. It is perfection. Understanding that perfection, understanding that divine blueprint that makes the world work the way that it does, allows you to get into flow with the universe. It's a divine flow with the universe. Understanding not only your place in it, but everything else's place as well. So you really come to understand the creator that you are. And that is all that this show is about, is tapping into that divine flow, understanding how the makeup of the universe not only affects your life and affects everything around you, but how it taps into every decision that you make, into every relationship that you have, into every thought that jumps into your head. Understanding the flow of the universe allows you to take back your power. So I'm very, very excited for the topic today. Last week we talked about reincarnation, which is a huge topic to understand. It is very important to understand the purpose of reincarnation because it sizes up and influences each and every life. But one of the big questions when you're talking about reincarnation, if we have multiple lives, is what are we doing in between those lives? What are we doing in the space in between when we are not in a physical form? Where do we go when we die? Is there a heaven? Is there a hell? Do we get punished? Do we get judged? Is it like that movie Defending Your Life where you're going up in front of a judge with two lawyers trying to defend your actions in life? Do we have jobs? This question really serves at the heart of our fear of death, our fear of dying, our fear of losing other people. What happens when we die? Well, this show is all about that. This show is all about the life between lives. What happens when we leave this physical form? And what happens right before we come back? I have a soul sister out there, and I don't know if she's watching this episode today or she'll catch it later. I've had the privilege of working with her in her Akashic records, of going into her Akashic records with her to discuss her son, who she recently lost. The overwhelming information that he's providing about their soul connection, him and his mother, and how their connection in the physical life is a drop in the bucket of their lives together. And that his work continues on in the spiritual realm. In fact, he's more powerful there than he could ever be in a physical world. He can make more of a difference. And that understanding that this life, this flesh, is a millisecond of our entire existence. And all the real work happens when we're outside of it, really puts life into perspective. More than that, and why this topic is so important to me, is it explains why certain things happen in your life. It explains why you look the way that you do. It explains why you act the way that you act, why your parents were the way that they were, the type of siblings that you chose, what location you were born, the race, the culture, the religion that you were born into. Understanding what happens in between infers that every single aspect of your life was carefully, meticulously planned out. And the research that I've done into this topic has been across the board, lots and lots of spiritual, metaphysical leaders and psychological leaders have looked into the life between lives. And that sound is my cat unrolling. She's unrolling a gold chain that I used to make jewelry, because she's a cat, and that is what cats do. Anyways, the leading research into this, in my experience, has been Edgar Cayce's information, who talked very, very heavily about reincarnation. And if you look into his studies about reincarnation, his readings on reincarnation, he talks about why souls chose the thing that they did, which speaks very much to his life purpose work, but also infers what happens in between lives, that we come down to life with such a careful plan for what we're going to do. The type of planets have to be in a very specific alignment to give us the gifts that we want. We have to choose physical bodies that will allow us to do the mission that we've signed up for. We have to face challenges and pain that's going to give us the skills we need to meet those challenges and mission. So when you look into his work, it really touches on what happens in between. Now, my favorite work on this is Michael Newton's work. Now, Michael Newton has written several books on the life between lives. And his work comes from working with clients, doing regression therapy with clients. He would take clients back to their death in this life. And what he was attempting to do is do past life regressions. Cat, hey, no. She's such a diva. Anyhow, I can like sense her gearing up to do something worse. Anyways, he wanted to take his clients to their past lives to help them figure out some of their karma, some of their soul contracts that we talked about in the last show. And what he realized when he regressed people back into their deaths and between their next birth, that there was a lot of things that were happening in those lives. So he started taking people there intentionally. Instead of going to the past life, he would take them into the between space. What happened when they died in their last incarnation? What steps did they go through? What did that look like? What jobs were there? What was life like there? And when they were prepared to come back into this life, what steps did they take in preparation for their next lives? And what Michael Newton discovered through his case studies was that there were commonalities across the board. There were things in every single case study talking about this world, this entire world outside of this physical form, where we work, we live, we love, we prepare, we study, we grow. And then these lives, these physical lives are, like I talked about last week, they're like college classes. Your final exam, even if you look at it that way, the in-between lives is all about preparation and working. That's our real existence. But sometimes we need to learn something. Sometimes we need a little bit of on-the-job training. Sometimes we need a boost in our evolutionary cycle. So we incarnate specifically to learn those lessons, to hone and evolve our soul. So tonight I'm going to be sharing information from Newton's work. I'm going to be sharing some of the Edgar Cayce stuff, as well as my own in-between life regressions. I've been lucky enough to do a couple in-between regressions myself with a friend that I went to Atlantic University with, which is Edgar Cayce's college. And what I learned about this life from doing my own in-between work was life-changing. It took me out of a place of victimhood ever again. I can never, ever again claim that the world is being cruel to me or that I am a victim. Understanding how much thought I put into this life, down to the most mundane detail, shows me how in control I really am of every aspect of my life. I could never be a victim because I created this life. I created every aspect of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's why this is so important to understand. So that you take back the driver's seat of your own life and understand your role in it and other people's role in it. They are gifting you with an experience that you set up in advance. Life selection is an absolute no joke process. This is the process of deciding down to the gnat's ass what your life is going to be like. What challenges are you going to face? What major life challenges are you going to face? What location should you be born into? Who will be born with you? What will their roles be? What body do you want to have? What physical challenges will you be born with? Every aspect of your life that we just take for granted right now is a decision. What gifts will you come down with? What motivations will you have? What passions will you have? What weaknesses will you have? All of this is so carefully considered. And how these decisions are made is very much backwards planning from that book report that you've put together on your lives. You've gone through and you said, okay, I still need X, Y, and Z. I can't get to these more advanced classes that I want to get until I get X, Y, and Z. All right. So X is really complicated, and the best way for me to learn X is to probably go through these 4 different events. Each one is going to be very, very painful in this life, but it gives me the opportunity each and every time to ensure that I learn X. So I will be born into, I need to have this situation happen when I'm a child. I need to have this situation happen in high school. I will have this situation happen at 30, and then I will hit it again at 60. I will have those 4 situations mapped out in my life plan to ensure that I learn X, to give myself the most chance of learning X. Okay, now Y and Z are a little less stressful. I could probably pepper those in throughout. Maybe I can bring in a friend to teach me a little bit of Y. They'll come in and steal my money on this occasion. They'll help me learn Y. So now that I have mapped out my goals in this life, my lessons that I need to learn, I'm going to start picking out things that will support those lessons. So what location is going to help me advance in these goals in X, Y, and Z? Well, first world country, second world country, third world country. What are my lessons that I need to learn? Okay, great. This part of the Middle East is exactly what I need to learn Y and Z. So I'm going to choose to incarnate here in this country in the Middle East. Well, in order to learn X, because X is my most dramatic thing, I'm going to need to have a very contentious relationship with my parents. I'm going to need to bring in some souls to help me learn X, which is going to be a negative relationship with my parents, to give me a chance to learn independence and to learn strength in an abusive relationship. So I'm going to go to this adjacent soul group and say, hey, I need Bob and Sally over here to be my parents in this life to help me learn X. So you pick out the souls based on the lessons that you need, based on the locations, based on the roles that you need them to play. And you plan it out like you're planning out your blockbuster movie. Everything about it, down to the soundtrack of the movie, is incredibly intentional, hence intentionality. The souls that are coming down with you, they have their own blockbuster movies that they're playing, but God bless the fact that it's divine, because our soul missions and lives interlink in a perfect symphony and dance that you cannot possibly imagine in this lifetime. But we agree to the roles that we're going to play in each other's movies. Now, the bad guy in my movie is not necessarily, they're not playing the bad guy in their own movie. They've got their own bad guys. But they've agreed to come down and play a very specific bad guy for me because I need that storyline in order for me to meet X, in order for me to learn my lesson. So you start having these like hardcore study groups where you go through what is needed to help your soul learn X, Y, and Z, and to help their soul learn A, B, and C. And how do we link together? How do we play these roles for each other so that our blockbuster movie is perfection? Once all of that is decided, you get to choose your body. Now, in my past life, or in my between life regression, I remember looking specifically at 3 very different body types, 3 very different bodies, 2 male and 1 female. And that was, these bodies were recommended to me by my guides, as well as, some of my own suggestions based on the lessons that I needed to learn, based on the location that I was planning to incarnate. And I got to choose which body would help me learn those lessons the most effectively. And I chose this one specifically to get more attention. That's what my soul told me. It's a very narcissistic answer. But I needed a body that would stand out. So I chose a roughly 5'11" blonde female from a family of giants. So I would never blend in with society, which will make my life lessons even more potent because they're going to be more painful in some respects. It was going to be harder for me to ignore my life lessons because they were going to be very much in my face. So choosing all of these aspects gets you to a place where now you are ready to incarnate. The so what of all of this? Why does this matter? Because if you can look at every aspect of your life as a part in your blockbuster movie that you planned as the director, how does that change how you look at the people around you? How does that change how you see the things that have happened in your life, especially those big things? And from my own personal background, there are several events in my life that I know beyond a shadow of a doubt I picked to teach me major lessons. My relationship with my mother growing up, having a great and very loving relationship with her until it just wasn't. And it flipped so quickly overnight because of the drugs and the alcohol that she was doing that my soul was forced to react very, very quickly to protect myself, to figure out what was going on, and to figure out how I wanted to handle that. That event was absolutely a major event that I had put into my life in order to learn a lesson. I can't tell you with 100% certainty that I learned the lesson properly, but it absolutely was. Another situation that was undeniable for me was the cancer. Having to go through breast cancer and at the age of 30 was absolutely an event that I needed to go through to learn a lesson. The situation with my job, having gone through the sexual harassment and losing my career, these events seemed at the time so out of my control. Yet when I look back, they were such big events that really forced me to show up for myself in a way that I had not been asked to before. They asked me to find a strength that I didn't know I had before. And those lessons forged who I was. And each lesson really compounds upon itself. So that situation with my mother gave me the strength to deal with the cancer. It gave me the presence of mind to go through all of that. The cancer and the situation with my mother gave me the strength to get through the situation with my career, to be able to remake myself is, oh, I just realized that's some of the lesson. Each of those events forced me to remake and re-identify who I was, to completely remodel who I thought I was. I'm gonna have to think on that. That's a good one. Sneaky spirit. So looking at those events not as things that were done to me, never as a victim, helped me to understand why things are happening and learn the lessons faster. The lessons don't need to necessarily be that painful, especially if you see them as lessons and not as punishment for something. This, in the reverse, goes for people that you have hurt and that you have wronged. You played a role for them. You played a very specific role for them. Now, learn from it. You don't have to react to the way that you did, especially if you feel guilt over it. But don't hang on to that guilt either, because you gifted them by playing a role for them. Just like the people who have hurt you were playing a role for you. Have gratitude for that role that they played, because they taught you something. And paying attention, doing like between life regressions, will help you to understand how their role fed who you are. And it helps you keep your eye on the prize. All souls are aiming for evolution. All souls, even that party group, will eventually evolve. Although I'm sure that they're still out there. I bet they're having a ball in this time period. All souls are aiming to grow and evolve. There are no bad souls. We are given choices when we're here. We play roles for each other. And we can absolutely go astray. We can fail to meet the goals that we set for ourselves. But the picture is bigger than that. This is a millisecond of our existence. So learning to understand that and recognize the roles that we play for each other, the lessons that we have to learn, even why we chose the physical bodies that we did. Imagine if everybody on this planet accepted their body as a gift that they chose for themselves. What would that do for the physical image that we have of our bodies? That we chose this vessel for a very specific reason. And what if we understood that reason? What if we understood why we were born into a certain place? Why we were born into a certain culture with certain religious beliefs taught to us at a young age? What if we understood why we were born with a certain skin tone, or to a certain country that didn't have running water or was constantly at war? These things are all intentional. There's a bigger picture to all of it. And I highly recommend anybody who's interested in this subject research their own in-between lives and read Michael Newton's work. Journey of the Souls and Destiny of the Souls are phenomenal books if you are interested in this subject. They will give you a much bigger understanding than just reincarnation. Reincarnation is the tip of the iceberg. All of the good stuff is happening underneath the water. So if anybody's interested in exploring this subject more or has any questions on this, please reach out to me at chrisalicia@intentionality.com.